4 offensive linemen, 3 defensive backs, 1 edge rusher, 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and a punter. Welcome, 2022 Bears rookie class. He's Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune. I'm Dionne Miller from ABC7. Dan, I went in with 6 picks, left with 11. I kind of like the approach.
Yeah, for sure. Frenzied Saturday at Halas Hall for Ryan Poles as he finished up his first draft as Bears general manager. I thought all along that they were going to turn those 6 picks into maybe 8, potentially 9. Never did I see 11. But there was a stretch on Saturday, first starting in the morning and then continuing into the early afternoon, where Ryan was on the phone making trades. Hey, Chargers, you want to do a deal? Deal. Texans, you want to do a deal? Deal. Yeah. Bills call. Bengals call. 4 trades, end up getting those 3 Saturday picks, turn into 8 Saturday picks. And as Ryan explained Saturday night, in a league where the draft hit rate isn't very high, the best way to make sure that you get more hits is to take more swings, right? And so he got 8 swings on Saturday, 11 in all. And now, even without a first round and a 4th round pick, the Bears feel like they have some answers to at least create competition, hopefully plug some holes on the depth chart, and we'll see where they go from here.
It was fun to see that all unfold that way. Watching with my son, he kept saying, wait, I thought they were picking now. Where'd they go now? Like, it was just kind of cool to see that all unfold. And then once they started making those picks and introducing them via Zoom to all of us, I kind of got excited about the personalities they brought in, about the potential of the holes that they can fill to go O-lineman the way that he did. And I appreciated when he was asked after the draft about, like, why didn't you start with offensive line? He's like, look, that's me. That's my personality. That's who I am. I could have done that, but it would have been a detriment to the team because you're watching these other guys who could walk away and have the potential to be an all-pro in a year. And we're kicking ourselves because we didn't do that. We didn't make that move and it was right in front of us. So I felt like that was a very transparent explanation, but also a wise one, because now you're bringing in some offensive linemen, one of whom grew up a Bears fan, who's going to be so motivated to make this team and to fill that hole and to do great things. I think it looks smart at this point.
Yeah, the Bears fan you mentioned is Doug Kramer from the University of Illinois, my alma mater, and Hinsdale Central High School. It was very funny because the Bears brought down scouts after 9 of their 11 picks this weekend to talk about their picks. And Jeff Shiver, who's been in the organization forever, came down to talk about Doug Kramer. And he said, Doug's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And somebody followed up and said, what do you mean by Doug's been through a lot? And basically his answer was, well, he played football in Illinois. They never win. They have coaching changes. As an Illini, I was like, ooh, that hurts, but man, you're not off with that. There's a lot of guys in the draft that have stories of what they've really been through. They've been through a lot. Doug's story is he went to Illinois and played football and they didn't win a lot. Never got a lot of bowl swag. So,
look, Dan, everybody has a tragedy, and that frankly is his. As soon as they announced his name, the first thing I said to my producer was, isn't he the one who was pushing pickup trucks during the pandemic?
Yeah.
And he was right down the street with his hands, which is pretty awesome.
So good for Doug Kramer on that story. I agree with you on the personality aspect of things, but let's talk a little bit about just the compilation of things they got. First with the offensive line, as you mentioned, Ryan, basically, I asked him late Saturday evening, what do you think you accomplished on the offensive line? You get 4 guys. We don't know how many of these guys are even going to be here in September, much less 3 years from now, right? Because that's just the nature of the late stages of day 3 of the draft. His answer was that, hey, at least we got competition, right? And even if some of these guys don't stick, if they can push the other guys that are already in the program to say, oh my God, my job's not safe, and the whole unit starts to feel that edge and that competitive growth, then there you go. Yeah. You start with a guy in Braxton Jones, who was their first pick on Saturday from Southern Utah. And, he said he didn't have a lot of contact with the Bears during the pre-draft process. And then lo and behold, a week before the draft arrives, they send an assistant offensive line coach down to Utah to have dinner with him, to put him through a quick last-minute private workout. And I think that was just sort of a final box check on, like, okay, we want to see this guy move in person. He can address a need for us. And now you've got a guy at tackle, right, that can potentially come in and be an answer for you. And so they're going to have to figure that out. Now, Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum, who knows who's playing left, who's playing right, and who's going to be competing with old Braxton Jones for a spot, right? You got to remember that the emotional attachment, as we've talked about before, to Jenkins and Borum is minimal for Ryan Poles. So now he's got his guys in this draft class, 4 guys that he drafted, and the general manager is always motivated to have his draft picks become something, right? And so in that regard, this is going to be really interesting to watch that play out. They'll get on the field for rookie minicamp there. I want to ask you, what is your favorite pick of the weekend? Because there were 11 of them. And obviously we last talked on Thursday night when there were 0 of them.
Right.
And so since then, of those 11 guys, what's your favorite pick for any reason?
Elijah Hicks.
Okay.
I mean, everything he said, the way he responded. Did you see what he did on social media when he was talking to Bears fans?
Clapping,
he drops down and he's doing push-ups. I was like, I love this guy. I love how excited he was. And I loved when he said that right before he got the call, all he kept thinking was, whoever calls me right now is totally getting a steal because I am going to come in hot. And that's how he was. And it just, I just instantly fell in love with him. What about you?
Yeah, so let me just follow up on Elijah Hicks, and then I'll give you mine, because Hicks, that energy, right? That energy was infectious that he was giving off. He's in Lake Tahoe with some buddies and his girlfriend celebrating, and he said he had all 32 hats of the teams lined up in front of him, and his girlfriend had put the Bears hat for some reason right near the television. Now, he was a Cal Bear, so maybe he's got an attachment to Bears to begin with, but those hats are there in front of the TV. He ends up wearing the Bears hat on the Zoom call with us, and I say, look, you're obviously prepared. What do you do with those other 31 hats? I hope you left the tags on. And he instantly said, tags are on. They're getting returned really quickly, right? And so
I love
the
it.
sense of humor was there. He was taking them back to the store right away. For me, you heard how much I talked about receivers every time we talked in the last 10 days. So they only got one of their 11 picks as a receiver. It's Velus Jones from Tennessee. I don't know that it's necessarily my favorite pick, because I think that this guy's going to be a high producer for this offense and special teams, but because there's a skill set there that's intriguing, and it will tell us a lot about Luke Getsy as a coordinator. To take a guy who's 205 pounds, runs a 40-yard dash in 4.31 seconds, and has shown in his college career that when you put the ball in his hands, he can be explosive, fireworks show, right? And now you got to figure out how to get the ball in his hands in creative ways. He's not necessarily a polished route runner or receiver by trade, and now you've got this guy for Justin and Getsy to figure out, okay, let's get behind closed doors and figure out how do we sort of blend him into this offense and figure out. Now Velus Jones is another guy that, because of the pandemic, went back to school for the extra year of eligibility. He also started his career at Southern Cal and then went to Tennessee. So his 25th birthday, Dionne, is coming up before OTAs start, between minicamp, rookie minicamp, and OTA. So this is a 25-year-old rookie. That's another weird little footnote and tidbit.
I don't hate it though, Dan. Like I think there was way too much made about how old he is. I really did. There's a maturity that comes with that. I don't hate that. There's been so many guys who've been drafted who do foolishness off the field. He's a guy who's been through something, right? Been through more than just playing at Illinois. He's transferred, he's adjusted, and he's older, and he has a different motivation behind that. And I don't hate that at all. I think having that experience is really big. I mean, the same thing for Jaquan Brisker to have to go junior college and then go to Penn State and find a way to move up that draft board and get people's attention. I think that says something about the character of who these guys are and how badly they want it.
I believe that Jaquan Brisker's Twitter handle is Quani B. I think he joined his Zoom call with us as Quani B. So I will no longer refer to him as Jaquan Brisker on this program. He's Quani B forevermore. Just make a mental note of that, because I don't want to hear you say Jaquan Brisker to me. I'll be like, who are you talking about? It's Quani B. So remember that as we go forward. Most intriguing pick. I'll give you mine. You get about 30 seconds to think about it. Domonique Robinson, edge rusher from Miami of Ohio on Saturday. This is a guy that a couple of years ago was a receiver in the Red Hawks program. He actually went to college as a dual threat quarterback, and they're like, you know what, you're going to get on the field more as a receiver. And then midway through his college career, they're like, you know what, why don't you try to rush the passer? We like your size, your length, your burst, all those things. And so Domonique Robinson is a guy that, we just talked about Luke Getsy having to do something with Velus Jones. Well, now Matt Eberflus and his staff have to put together a developmental plan for a guy who was playing receiver a couple of years ago, but who they see traits in that they can mold. And so this is a test. Like Ryan Poles said Saturday night, part of the reason we take a guy like that is because we trust our coaches as teachers to do something with them. I'm really interested to see how this guy plays. He among the guys he told us he's been studying is Leonard Floyd, obviously former Bears draft pick who was a tall, rangy, long guy with some burst. And so it'll be interesting to see if there are any parallels between Domonique and Leonard Floyd. You got one for me?
All right. So I've had to think about it while you've been talking, because that is incredibly intriguing for a guy to go from receiver to defensive end but his reasoning, right? I made the switch because I'm a playmaker, and how do I make plays without the ball in my hand? Well, you switch to defense. I thought that was just so cool to hear him explain it that way. I think Ja'Tyre Carter.
Okay.
I liked that I loved when he was like, everybody was screaming so loud. His family was so excited. He's the first player from Utah or Southern. Where did he go? Help me.
Southern, just Southern.
Southern. First player from Southern since what, like 2004 or something? I don't know. It's been it's rare for someone from that school to pop up on a draft board. And I just like the genuineness of it. And I think that will be a driving motivation for him. It's intriguing to me because I just want to see what he can bring competition-wise to that position.
The Bears area scout who was in charge of putting together the initial report on Ja'Tyre Carter was Breck Ackley, who was a kicker at Southern.
No way.
And so Breck came down to the room. He was very excited to land a guy from his alma mater. He said, obviously, my voice had a little more oomph when I was talking about Ja'Tyre. And these scouts, Dionne, listen, there's a lot of years that you go out and you spend months and months studying these prospects and putting together reports. And then you go into a draft and they don't take any of the guys. And you go, boy, that was fun, huh? I didn't get anything. So for 11 picks on Saturday, these scouts got rewarded. They got a chance to say, hey, this guy that I really liked is now coming to our program. I thought it was interesting to hear those guys talk. Breck Ackley, who I just mentioned, said that when Poles was making all those deals Saturday, he said it was fast and furious. And there was a Wolf of Wall Street vibe up there in the draft room with Ryan Poles, making moves and doing it with an energy that got that building up a little bit.
Okay, so I don't hate that description. You want an aggressive GM, especially in your first year, and the way he was making decisions without hesitation. I think that says a lot about he had. I hate the conviction. It sounds like his predecessor, but he did. He had conviction about what he was doing, and I think that you look at this draft class and you think, all right. This was a good draft for a Bears team that needed a lot and ended up getting a lot. And I don't feel like he reached. I don't feel like he made these decisions that he was like, okay, I have to have this. It just kind of was, it seemed more natural, I guess is the best way to describe it.
I'm not going to say more natural, but I will say that I think that Ryan exhibited a confidence in the preparation process and in the post-draft recap of the picks he made. I think that he really feels confident in the staff he has around him, really confident in his own abilities. We'll see what it turns out to be. Ryan Pace had that in his early stages too, and we know how that ended up turning out. This is all a long guessing game, right? And I could come home and people ask me, did the Bears get anybody good? And I don't know, maybe. Every year it's like that. I always get sort of amused at the commitment to the board, right? It's like, well, the board told us this, right? Like the board, we couldn't deviate from our board. We could have taken this guy, but our board told us this. It's proven over and over and over, reproven again every year that everyone's board is wrong, right? Yes. The board is never right. It's never not an answer key. It says, a kind of reliable guide in certain instances. So I always get a kick out of the commitment the team show to their board as if it's like, that is the answer key. And 5 years from now, we'll look back and say 100%, Adam Shaheen is better than George Kittle. Oops, maybe not, right? Like those types of mistakes happen every year. I mentioned on Saturday on Twitter that the Bears in 2014 took Ego Ferguson 2 picks before the Packers took Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Oops City, right? Like
yeah.
So the board isn't necessarily the guide. Anyway, that's a tangent that we can get into again in another episode. The last question I have for you is, we went into this saying that one of the main priorities for Ryan was to get Justin help.
Yeah.
Obviously, he gets 4 offensive linemen. We'll see how many of them actually help Justin. He gets Velus Jones in the receiver, and then he gets a running back in Trestan Ebner from Baylor, who I think is another guy that you look at Ebner and he can help you on special teams. He's a returner. But as a back, he can come in and be that pass catching guy. He can be that change of pace guy. And it'd be interesting to see how they put together kind of the rotation of backs in a room that already includes Dave Montgomery, already includes Khalil Herbert. And now Trestan Ebner thinks that he's got a inside track to getting a roster spot because of the things he can do that are different, right? The special teams value and the pass catching ability and the ability to be reliable on third down. But overall, do you think they got Justin enough help given what Justin means to this organization?
No, not yet. No, not yet. I mean, it's unclear, but no, I think he still needs more. I think he needs more. Well, I guess we'll see if creating competition on the offensive line allows a top 5 to emerge, like a group to emerge that will give him plenty of protection to allow him to do more things. And then we'll also see if Darnell Mooney can take a big step and help him at the receiver position. But I do feel like they're going to need more weapons for him. I do like the Ebner thing because he even said, like, my strength is catching the pass. Like that's where my strength is as a pass catching running back. So I'm excited about that. Also, isn't Velus, like, his yards after the catch is like insane, right? So that's where he really shines. And so I feel like there's some there, but no, I'm not feeling that he's got enough yet. I think, but we have to see how he looks in this offense and what he truly needs in a different offense, right?
Right, no question. And I mean, this is what happens when you go into a draft without a first round pick, when you go into a draft without a fourth round pick, right? And you're left to just kind of, I think that all 8 of the Bears selections on Saturday were made in the bottom 100 of the draft, right? Like that's not necessarily a region of Draftville that produces superstars regularly. And so you talk about just of the 4 linemen, do any of them become 5-year starters for the Bears? We don't know yet. So now you're still kind of rolling the dice. You've got Lucas Patrick, the free agent signing at center, who Ryan Poles has brought up numerous times since he signed him as the guy that's going to be the tone setter up there up front. But beyond that, the Byron Pringle, Equinemius St. Brown signings at the receiver position, not exactly going to turn you into a top 10 offense overnight. And so they've got a lot of work to do. And I do think now sort of the pressure shifts from the front office to Justin's union with Luke Getsy, and let's see where they can take it in the months ahead, because you got a lot of work to do without a lot of pieces that you would like to have to get this thing rolling in the right direction. Let's see what they do.
Let me say this, though. For his first draft as GM, to be as active as he was on the last day, to bring in competition, to fill holes in the secondary that desperately need to be filled as quickly as possible, like plug and play guys, I'm really impressed with what he did this weekend. And now I feel like get through this year, and then next year when he has more money, when he has more picks, when he had, and then he really gets to like get his hands on this roster and make it his own. I feel like he took a really good, safe, strong step this weekend.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Kyler Gordon, who's the headliner of this class, right? The first overall pick for the Bears in this draft. And obviously that's a kid that they feel strongly about, that can be a corner. He's got experience inside.
Yes.
He's got experience outside. I think that they project him to play on the outside opposite Jalen Johnson. And he certainly seemed to have confidence. And in that regard, it was interesting to hear Francis St. Paul, the area scout out west, talk about how they went to the combine and Kyler Gordon runs a 4.52 40-yard dash, which is disappointing for a defensive back. But the Bears kind of pumped the fist and said, well, maybe this drops him down a couple notches in a few other teams' rooms. And now all of a sudden we're in play at pick 39. They obviously were in play. And now they feel like they've got a guy that despite the slow 40 time, plays fast, has instincts, is willing tackler, all those things. And so there's your Ryan Poles headliner for his first draft. Ryan Pace's headliner in his first draft, unfortunately, was Kevin White. And so hopefully Kyler Gordon can have a little bit more production than Kevin White had.
Can I say this though, Dan? You don't get invited to the red carpet in Vegas. You don't get to hang out in the green room, and you don't have like a whole feature package ready when you get drafted if you don't think you're going in the top 32. Like, he thought he was expecting to hear his name on Thursday night. They thought he was going to hear his name on Thursday night. So did the Bears get a steal? I think he's motivated to prove that they did, that he fell to them, that he could have gone much higher. And I think that 40 time probably had something to do with it. But I appreciate that. Also appreciate the fact that I think he wore the same suit both nights, because that was his draft suit and he owned it. And I can get on board with that. So I'm hopeful that that's what the Bears got with that. I did like do a deep dive on his mom and how she just is so proud of him and how he's so connected with his family. And I kind of love that relationship too, and that he's bringing that kind of backing and support with him. So I'm excited about him. I can get it behind anybody right now. It's April. The Bears won the weekend.
This is what I was going to say. Like, I'm typically obviously a very measured, like, hey, look, the odds are, if you play the odds, a lot of these guys won't be with the team in 3 years, right? Like we've seen enough of that to understand that that's how this works. But for the next 15, 16, 25 days, let's go with the hope that these guys are feeling. And just to your point earlier, the energy that guys have on draft day when their dreams come true, no matter what happens from here, it's contagious, right? And you feel good about a Doug Kramer coming on the Zoom and getting to play for his hometown team, being a Devin Hester, Brian Urlacher jersey owner back in the day, right? You feel good for an Elijah Hicks who's so jacked up that he's doing, clapping push-ups on a video for the team. There were so many moments where you just sense the energy from these guys. And even Kwani B gave us some energy on Friday night. And so good for these guys. They'll get in here later in the week. We'll have rookie mini camp at Halas Hall Friday to Sunday to finally meet these guys in person. It's going to be fun to just kind of feel out their personalities a little more as we go.
I can't wait. Love Zach Taylor too, man. I mean, what do you know about the Bears? I know they need another trophy. I mean, nailed it. Nailed it.
That is an absolute undeniable fact. We need another trophy too. When do they give out Emmys for shows like this?
We have to actually submit for them, but I don't see why we wouldn't win, Dan.
I don't either. If not, I think we've got some spare trophies somewhere in the basement. We can just give ourselves some kind of award. You can name it. We'll get best host of a Bears related YouTube video.
Unnamed podcast or an unnamed YouTube channel, right? Is that
yet to be named. Don't say unnamed. Yet to be named. We've got big plans in the works. Just hold on to that. That's Dionne Miller over there. She was going to say that's Dan Wiederer right here. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. That's your Bears 2022 Draft Rundown.